My word for today is called Steward Wisely. Who here can give me the definition of steward? Do you know what the definition is? Yeah, for me, I ask because I think a lot of times we know words, but then we don't really actually know what they mean. Like we hear words a lot. I think it's important to look into like what is it that it actually means. And so I looked it up, and for me too, what came to mind is someone who takes care of something and does it well. But the part of it that I didn't see was that it means to take care of something, but it is to take care or manage something for someone else. And so it's not your own that you're stewarding. You're stewarding it on the behalf of someone else, and you're taking good care of it for someone else. And so we should pay attention to the word steward because God calls us to be stewards, and not just stewards, but to be faithful stewards. And so I'm going to share 1 Corinthians 4 1 through 2, and it reads, "This then is how you ought to regard us, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that one is found faithful." So everything in our life is not our own. God has given it to us as a gift. Our very breath, all of our resources, they've all been gifted to us by God. And he calls us to steward them well. For example, in Psalm 24:1, it says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." So we know that God created the world and he owns everything. He created everything. Yeah, we owe it all to him. So as stewards, our challenge is to use God's resources in ways that advance his interests. We need to invest in his kingdom and know his heart. So some things to steward in our life is our time, managing what we spend our time on, organizing our day to focus on what God says our priorities should be instead of letting the day happen to us. I know for myself, if I don't take the time to plan out what my day should look like and what I want to get done, the day just kind of goes by and it happens, and then you're like, how did that happen so quickly? It's the end of the day and I didn't get anything done that I wanted to because I wasn't intentional about it. And I didn't prioritize the things that, are important to God. So it's important we steward our time well and manage it well. Another thing is our finances, making sure that we're generous to others because God calls us to be generous as he is generous, to be like in his likeness. And also spending, just being aware of what we spend our money on, making sure we're spending money on things that edify us and glorify him as well. And then stewarding the blessings God has given us, like friendships, relationships, marriage, children, making sure that we realize these are gifts from God and treat them with honor, love, and respect. My daughter is 18 months old, and just realizing that I'm just her guide in life. She's not my own. I don't own her. God gave her to me as a gift, and it's my job to steward that well as a parent and to raise her to follow the Lord. And for me, success is that she has a good relationship with Jesus and obeys and follows him wherever that leads, even if it doesn't make sense to me. And another thing is stewarding our jobs, making sure we do our work as unto the Lord and having integrity and working hard. Another one that I'm going to go in more depth about is stewarding the gifts that God has given us. And so it's really important to not make light of the talents that God has given us. I think often we can not think much of our gifts. I think things that come naturally to us, we're just like, oh, well, everyone can do this, or like this is easy because God's given us this gift, and to us it feels natural. And so we may not even see it as a gift and a blessing. And God still expects us, even if we don't think much of our talent or gift, God still expects us to steward it faithfully. Another thing too is we may not think our gift is enough to produce the fruit we want. We might think, oh, if only I had these other giftings, or if only I had this other thing in my life, then I could get to the vision that God has in my heart. If I was like this other person who had these giftings, then I could get where I want to go. And so we can stay stuck in complaining that God didn't bless us with the right talents and gifts, or that he didn't give us enough talents, gifts, or resources. But God calls us to be a good steward of what he gave us already. and for us to realize what he has already given us. Because if we proclaim we don't have enough, then we won't have enough. And then if we profess that God did not give us enough, then that's exactly what we'll see play out. And another thing is too, if we don't have faith that the gift God gave us can grow, then we won't put it into practice and we won't put in the work to see it grow, because we don't see it developing into what God has purposed for it. And so if we don't use our gifts to bless others, then our life and gifts can stay stagnant if we don't steward them well. So I'm going to read the parable of the talents. I know Pastor Svet talked about this in his last sermon, but I think God kind of revealed to me a little bit more in it. I'm going to go and read through it. And it's in Matthew 25:14-30. It says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. To the one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, another 1, to each to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. Likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. He who received 1 went and dug in the ground, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. He who received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I've gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said, Well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I'll make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also who had received the 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered me 2 talents. Look, I gained 2 more. And then same thing he said to him. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, gathering where you have not scattered seed, and I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But the Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to those who has 10 talents. To everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So what I got from this is I noticed that each of the servants that put their talents to work, they received back more than what they were originally given. But it was a risk to put those talents to work. Things could have not turned out in their favor. Risked losing those talents and then being in debt to the master for losing what was entrusted to them. But what the key is that they chose to trust that the master was good and that he was a just master. And so that is what gave them the confidence to be able to invest, because they knew, even if I lose this money, I know my master is good. He's going to forgive me and he'll give me another chance. He loves me and he wants to see me grow. But the servant with the 1 talent, he didn't trust the master. He had this idea of who his master was. He didn't think he was good, and he feared him. And so because of that, because of his idea of who the master was, he feared making a mistake. He feared investing his talent. He feared putting himself out on a limb. He chose to preserve his talent and bury it and hide it in the ground. And in a way, he was using self-preservation for himself and hiding himself. And so I think a lot of times we do this to ourselves. We fear messing up. We fear disapproval from others and how we look to others, and maybe fear disapproval from God. We fear that, if we invest and try to grow this talent that God has given us, then we're going to fail. It's not going to work out. And I guess maybe we feel like we might have a debt to God, that we didn't do what he wanted us to do. So we hide and don't take risks. But we can't grow without taking risk. And with God being on our side, it really isn't a risk because, as I said, He is a good Father, and He is someone that we can rely on to fall back on. He wants to share the joy of our faithful stewardship. And He's proud of us for every step of faith that we take to grow and to learn. And He doesn't want us to hide our talents from others and be ashamed of them, even if we feel like they're not enough or that they're not developed enough. He wants us to utilize them to bless others. Because He's called us, as I said last week, I was talking about shining our light to others so that we can reflect Christ to others. I'm just going to pray over us. Just pray a blessing. I bless us to share in the joy of the Lord, for faithfully stewarding what He has given us. I bless us to have a fruitful year. I bless us with a year of stewarding the talents God has given us. I bless us with a year of increase in our gifts, a year of harvest. I bless us with focus, perseverance, and strength to press in and develop our giftings. And I bless us with the wisdom to manage the blessings and resources God has given us. And I bless us with the ability to trust God and see Him as good, patient, and loving Father. Amen.